Now, I'm in Leith this afternoon where we're looking into short-term let licensing scheme which has come into force across Scotland. Operators had until yesterday to apply for a licence, and if they haven't, they risk being fined and banned from the scheme. Well, the changes were brought in to promote health and safety, but also to tackle housing shortages and antisocial behaviour, especially in hotspots like Edinburgh. Well, with me in Leith are Mike Williamson from the Tenants Union Living Rent and Ralph Averbuch, who's owner of self-catering business in Edinburgh. Good afternoon to both of you. Thanks for coming along to the community centre here. Mike, now obviously the situation varies across Scotland, but in Edinburgh we do have a specific problem, don't we?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So there's an acute housing crisis across Scotland, but in particular in Edinburgh. So new rents on a two-bed flat, for example, have increased by 17.4% in the last 12 months. Nobody's wages have gone up by that much. And the average rent on a one-bed flat is now £999. That's across the whole city, not just in the city centre. There's actually, right now, at the moment, there are only 3 flats in the whole city of Edinburgh for less than £850. So there is a huge housing crisis in Edinburgh at the moment.
And how much of this would you say is down to the short-term let business?
Certainly some of it. So, for example, we estimate figures vary, but we estimate there's around 5,000 short-term lets, whole property short-term lets in the city of Edinburgh. There's also about 5,000 people in temporary accommodation in Edinburgh. So, you do the maths.
And are there more short-term lets, do you think, in Edinburgh than in other big cities?
I think probably because of the festival and Edinburgh is a tourist hotspot, yes, absolutely, than other cities. But this is also a big problem in the Highlands and Islands. You also see large numbers of short-term lets in Skye and Oban, for example.
Ralph, you have short-term lets. Tell us about your business.
Yeah, I've been operating since about 2004, slap bang in the middle of the new town in an old converted warehouse that was used to be used as an auction house storage. For me, the challenge, I totally sympathise with the position that Mike and his organisation are trying to take, but I don't recognise the figures. So he mentioned a figure which seems much closer to reality than I hear from places like Edinburgh City Council or even the Scottish Government when they were talking about there being 13,000 self-catering operations in the city. But now we hear something that's moving towards a more realistic number of 5,000. But then again, that doesn't in any way represent the real number that I'm aware of, which is probably less than half of that. So I'd love to understand where these numbers have been arrived and derived at, because so much of the legislation that we now are operating under as of the 1st of October was based on the notion that, we had multiple thousands more than I suspect we're going to find out is the reality once the dust has settled on this scheme.
Well, I don't know that you'll ever know, because obviously a lot of people aren't going to apply. I mean, the figure we have at the moment from Edinburgh Council, and I know you're disputing these figures, shows that as of Friday, only 18% of these short-term let businesses had applied. What do you think is wrong with the actual scheme?
Fundamentally, I think the issue that people have with the scheme is almost you have to take a step back. Why did we need a scheme? Is it for health and safety? If you said you spoke to the housing minister or we'll
be hearing from him later in the programme.
He says it's nothing to do with anything other than health and safety. But then other people have said, well, it's about housing need. But realistically, the few thousand properties that we've got in the city centre of Edinburgh, just using that as a specific example, because I fully take on board that the issue goes way beyond Edinburgh. But if we just take that as one example, the few thousand at most city centre whole home properties that have been involved in the self-catering sector for, in some cases, many, many years, if all of those were to come into the long-term let market, it would not touch the sides of the very real housing issues that we're facing in Edinburgh and other parts of Scotland. So, for example, we know there's a couple of thousand self-catering, full whole home self-catering units. They're not going to become affordable housing, that's for sure. But at the same time, we also know that there's 9,600 properties in Edinburgh right now that are unoccupied and have been for 6 months or longer, 1,600 of which are directly controlled by Edinburgh City Council. And what are they doing about that? So they're banging on about, dealing with issues of noise and disturbance, when their own data that they supply to us under a Freedom of Information release proved that it was pretty much a non-existent issue. There was 9 complaints over a 2-year period from short-term lets versus nearly 3,000 neighbour-on-neighbour complaints in Edinburgh.
Mike, would you agree with that?
Clearly, I do agree that the number of empty homes needs to be tackled, and we also need to build more housing. And of course, Living Rent as an organisation does campaign on both of those issues. We met with the Housing Minister just last week about construction of new housing. So yeah, clearly there is agreement there, but that doesn't let short-term let operators off the hook in terms of using the housing stock that we already have more efficiently. And time and time again, the people of Scotland, and in particular in Edinburgh, have been asked, do we need more holiday lets or do we need more homes? And the people have said we need more homes.
Do you think this scheme, though, will go a long way towards tackling that problem? Because, Ralph's right, a lot of these properties are in kind of high-end areas anyway, and they're not going to become affordable housing.
No, of course, but they do go into the rest of the housing market and makes more bedrooms available, which lowers the price for everybody. So it's not just about people in temporary accommodation, for example, moving directly into those places, but there is a transfer.
OK, very brief final comment, Ralph.
I just want to make the point that the Scottish Government itself says it needs to build 130,000 homes by 2030. So, less than 2,000 full-time self-catering units in the city centre of Edinburgh is not going to solve the problem.
OK, thank you both very much indeed for coming along to the community centre here in Leith, and we'll have much more later in the programme, including we'll hear from the Housing Minister, Paul McLennan. But Ralph Averbuch and Mike Williamson, thank you.
Thank you.